Hello and welcome back to Hearthstone. My name's Lumin and right now we're going to have a look at all the new cards coming in the Hearthstone League of Explorers adventure, which is, by the way, looking like a whole lot of fun. I'm not going to talk about the actual adventure and the parts of it that I've seen right now. I just want to talk about the cards specifically. And I guess I should probably mention here that these are just my personal feelings. I am not qualified to rank them. I'm not qualified to assess them based on where I feel they'll fit in the competitive scene of Hearthstone, or how, I don't know, often we'll see them in ranked play or in the arena or whatever. Just gonna give you my feelings on the cards, say whether I think they're good or not. Starting with Ancient Shade. We're gonna go through the neutrals, then the class cards. That's how we're doing it. There are 3 cards for each class and a whole bunch of neutrals. They equal a total of 45. Ancient Shade. 4 mana for a 7/4. Battlecry. Shuffle an Ancient Curse into your deck that deals 7 damage to you when drawn. This is a very aggressive card. I mean, 4 mana for a 7/4, but it does die pretty easily, and if you think about it on turn 4, 4 health it's tough to keep alive, right? I mean, in many cases when you play something like a Piloted Shredder on turn 4, then you playing it thinking to yourself, well, it's okay if it dies, because something else is going to pop out. The only thing that's going to pop out when this is in play is an Ancient Curse, at some point dealing 7 damage to you, which could potentially kill you. I don't know. I think it could find play in like super aggressive decks. I mean, you think about it, people use the Fel Reaver, and that's got a pretty negative effect attached to it. Maybe this combined with the Fel Reaver would be good, because then maybe you could discard the Ancient Curse? I don't know. I mean, I personally don't like this card very much, but I do think it could see quite a bit of play in aggressive decks. Because, I mean, come on turn 4 it's got 7 attack. Next. Anubiseth Sentinel. This is a 5 mana 4/4, and its death rattle is give a random friendly minion +3/+3. And it's a common. The previous one was a rare. I don't know about this one. I looked at it and I thought to myself, well, that's a pretty big death rattle, and it's nice and all, seeing that there are some cards that synergize well with death rattles, but for 5 mana getting a 4/4 just doesn't seem that great. I don't know. If you could in some way make death rattles trigger twice, that might just be stupidly imbalanced, but still, I mean, something like a Sludge Belcher could potentially just be more useful on turn 5. I don't know. It seems okay. I mean, it's a common. I guess that's why it's not super powerful, but it seems okay. Next up is the Jinni of Zephyrs. 5 mana for a 4/6. When you cast a spell on another friendly minion, cast a copy of it on this one. So he takes any buff that you put, or any spell that you put on one of your own minions, and he puts it on himself as well. So if you cast a Power Word Shield, or a Blessing of Might, or a Blessing of Kings, or whatever, he will get it as well as the other minion you're actually casting it on. That's a really cool effect. This guy's an epic, and I guess you can see that just based on the really cool effect, and his stats are, in my honest opinion, quite good. 4/6 is nice. 6 health is difficult to deal with. I mean, 4/5 would have been bad. 4/6 is pretty good. Pretty good. He would probably only work in, what is it, like Druid, Priest, and Paladin, just because they have the most and cheapest buffs. But I don't know if you'd be able to really use him. 5 mana, and then you still gotta put the buff on him. Again, maybe only with like cheaper buffs, and you don't get the effect of the buff. Like, so if you play Power Word Shield, you just get the 2 health, you don't get the double draw. You just get extra 2 health on him, so it'll make him a 4/8. With Blessing of Kings, it'll make him a 8/10 or something like that, which is really good, but again, the 5 mana slot is kind of competitive. There are so many decent cards you can really throw in there that this would have to be in a really specific deck that doesn't exist at this point. I guess that's the reason that you release new cards like this, so people can mess around and maybe use them. There are some other cards in Priest that, in Dragon Priest for instance, in Priest decks, that could benefit from this as well. I mean, Dragon Priest sees the Lightbane and Darkbane sisters played. They have a very similar effect. Kinda cool. I mean, they do something when you buff them, so I think if you put it in a deck with those, and the Dragonkin Sorcerer does the same kind of thing. He gets +1/1 whenever you buff him with something. Could work. It's okay, it's not bad. Next, the Eerie Statue. 4 mana for a 7/7. This is a rare. Can't attack unless it's the only minion on the battlefield. I don't know if that's going to happen very often, like, no minions on the battlefield. That's unlikely, but you got to keep in mind that it's 4 mana for a 7/7 body, and it can be silenced. You silence it, you can attack. So that's pretty okay. I mean, I guess you could play this in a deck that would have like a lot of removal with some silence. I don't know. It's the big brother of the Ancient Watcher, and it's okay. But again, a very specific deck. I mean, could you play this in something like Handlock? Possibly in a Druid deck or something, because you already got so much silence in there that you would anyway run. Maybe, because then you could buff it up. I mean, it could be in the same kind of deck as the Jinny that we just looked at. You know, it's the same kind of thing. You could give it Taunt or you could silence it, and then it could be useful. But there you go. Next is the Fossilized Devil Saw. 8 mana for 8/8 Battlecry. If you control a beast, gain Taunt. I don't think this is very good. I just don't. It's not a beast itself, okay? But there are so many cards right now that are just better at 8 mana. Most of them legendary, of course. I guess this is very similar to an Ironbark Protector, but you need a beast for it to actually get Taunt. But it's not a class card, and it's a common. It's big. Maybe in Arena it'll be okay. But for like ranked play, I don't see it finding any use anyway. Next is the Gorillabot A3. 4 mana for a 3/4 common. Battlecry, if you control another mech, discover a mech. I kind of like this. So Discover is the new mechanic. I was waiting until I found a card with Discover on it to discuss it. What Discover does basically is it activates tracking. That's sort of what it is, but the cards that are displayed to you, so it'll display these 3 cards to you. They are not cards from your own deck. You discover them from the entire pool that they give you. So here it's discover a mech and your class cards, not from other classes cards. So let's say you're playing this in a Paladin deck, you would find things like Shielded Minibot in there. Okay, that's a definite possibility. And then all the neutral mechs, like Piloted Shredder, Mech Whooper, and so on and so forth. So I think with this specifically, you'd probably get a reasonably good card out of this. Even the cheaper mechs, a Noyotron, they're pretty good. I mean, you're paying 4 for a 3/4, decent stats. You'd want, I mean, I suppose that's good. It's a mech itself. I wanted to say you'd want more from it for 4 mana, but I don't know. I think it's okay. I honestly think it's pretty good. It's going to be a nice tool for mech decks to help them not run out of steam. Because with Mech Mage, for instance, that happens quite often, that the Mech Mage just throws everything out on the board, and then if the opponent actually has a way to deal with all of that and removes all of that, then you're sitting there with nothing in your hand, and this could refill it for you. I mean, it's not like Jousting or whatever, where sometimes you draw that extra card, and sometimes not because you lose the Joust. No, this is just straight up you getting a choice between 3 mechs that you could use. You play this on turn 4, you could potentially get a turn 5 mech to play in the very next turn. Clockwork Knight, you could pick that up. I like it. I like this card quite a bit. Next is the Huge Toad. This is a common, 2 mana for a 3/2. Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. This is okay. This is a strictly better version of Bloodfen Raptor. It's the exact same stats, but it's got a Death Rattle. Power Creep. Ooh. I like the fact that it's got a Death Rattle on it. I love the artwork on it. I think it's a pretty cool card. Like, it's a beast as well, so you could use it in a Druid Beast deck, in a Hunter Beast deck. I like it. It's just a cool card. The Death Rattle is obviously a little, well, weak, but if you're playing it in an aggressive deck or against an aggressive deck, 1 damage is generally enough to kill something, you know? Except if it goes face. That would kind of suck. But I like this one. I like Huge Toad. Next, Jeweled Scarab. This is the first card they showed off that had Discover on it. 2 mana for a 1/1. It's a common. Battlecry. Discover a random 3-cost card. I like the idea of it, but 2 mana for a 1/1 just sucks. It just plain sucks. It's nice that you can play it on turn 2, pick up something that you can play on turn 3, and let that just, like, be that, you know? But, I'm not certain that people will actually go ahead and use this instead of all the other super powerful. I mean, just look at what we had before, the Huge Toad. So much stronger, Death Rattle, deal 1 damage. It just seems much, much better than something like this. But this, again, does sort of, I guess, have a place in a slightly more control-y deck or something. I don't know. No, actually, that doesn't even make sense either. Because you're discovering only a 3-cost card, so I'm not entirely certain how you would use this. But it is a cool idea. Okay, I like the fact that you get to discover a card that you can use on the very next turn. And I guess you can't say that this will just pick up minions. You could also get a spell from this, but only a class spell from the class that you're playing. So on Mage, you could get a secret, which is kind of cool. So maybe they could play these if they're fishing for another secret or something like that. Next, the Murloc Tiny Fin. This is more power creep, because this is basically a Wisp, except it's got the Murloc Tribal tag. That's basically what it is. 0 mana, 1/1. Not much more to say about it. This is a... I think I heard people say, yeah, this is a slight nerf to Murloc Knight, because obviously when you use your hero ability with Murloc Knight as a Paladin, this could pop out of there and that would kind of suck. But this is going to make Murloc decks much stronger, because more Murlocs, that's better. And you can just toss it out like on turn 1 along with whatever else. You know, it's just really good. I kind of like the idea of it. More Murlocs, always good. Next, Nagga Sea Witch. 5 mana for a 5/5, your cards cost 5. That's an interesting effect, right? So, if you play this on... Well, if you play this on turn 5, then on turn 6 you can play something for 5 mana, which doesn't make much sense. I suppose this would be better played on turn 10, then you can play anything else out of your hand. If you look at it like that, you could play it on turn 5 and play a big fat legendary on turn 6. I suppose that's the thing. This is an epic, by the way. The actual type and rarity of the card doesn't really matter very much. I don't know about this. I don't think this will really work in any deck, but it's an interesting idea, and I personally think it could have actually been like common or something, just because while the effect is strong, I suppose it's very good in Arena, right? Because in Arena you're already picking big stuff up. You want to have a lot of big bodies in your deck, and in the later game, playing them for 5 is pretty cool. And 5/5 is not too bad. Next, Summoning Stone. 5 mana for a 0/6. This is a rare. Whenever you cast a spell, summon a random minion of the same cost. I think this would be really good if it was a little bit cheaper, but then it would be imbalanced, so I don't know. This is basically like the Great Summoner competition, the brawl that we had. So if you play a 1 mana spell, you get a 1 mana minion. If you play a 5 mana spell, 5 mana minion. Certain levels there are really, really good, but playing this for 5 and then playing a spell, it's tough. Then again, I guess on 5 mana, 6 health isn't too bad. It's not super easy to remove. I mean, it is susceptible to things like Crazed Alchemist, Shadowword Pain, I don't know. Okay, but it's a nice idea. I really do like the idea of it. Next. Tomb Spider, 4 mana for a 3/3. Battlecry, discover a beast. This is okay, but it's 4 mana for a 3/3. I like the fact that it's discover a beast. I mean, there could be anything in there. You could get King Crush from this. You could get the beast from this. So there are legendaries in that pool. Gazrilla, you know? You could get a whole bunch of good stuff. Savannah Highmanes, or cheaper stuff that you could play maybe on turn 5 or whatever, after the turn you played this. But this guy, you can pretty much expect will die the second you play him, because 3 health, he can be killed by 1 cost and 2 cost minions. Yet you're playing this guy on turn 4. So he's not very strong, but it is a nice idea. And he's a beast himself, so I guess there's some synergy potential there. Next, the Wobbling Runts. 6 mana for a 2/6. Death Rattle, summon 3 2/2 Runts. This is a rare. It's a cool idea. You can see the Runts are stacked on top of each other here. And obviously when they die, then they unstack. And then they fight you, like, one-on-one. I like the card, but it's not that great. I mean, again, it's like a funny version of Savannah Highmane, but much less attack, much less threatening in many cases. I don't know. Interesting idea again, I like it, but I don't think it's particularly good. Next. Are these the legendaries? Are we moving on to the legendaries? Nice. Arc Thief Rafam. 9 mana, and his Battlecry is... Okay, 9 mana for a 7/8. He's a legendary. Battlecry, discover a powerful artifact. So, I don't have the artifacts in front of me, but the artifacts you get to choose from are the same every single time. I didn't see them anywhere. I couldn't find the images of them. But what they are is, they are 10 mana spells. So you could play this guy on turn 9. You get to choose between 3 10 mana spells. The one is 10 mana, fill your board up with 3 3s. If I'm not mistaken. The other is 10 mana, deal 10 damage randomly split amongst all enemies. And the final one is 10 mana, give a minion +10/+10. Those are the spells you get. They're okay. But this is 9 mana for a 7/8, which is not particularly strong. And those things cost 10. So sure, you can play them in the next turn, but they're not super strong. A board full of 3 3s, I suppose that's good. I mean, it's susceptible to a lot of board clear. It is probably not going to do very much on turn 10 if you're even still alive by then. I don't know. I mean, I think this guy's the final legendary you get in the entire adventure. So it's a little underwhelming where these artifacts are concerned. Maybe they're just a bit too expensive. Maybe if they were 8 mana, they would have been better. But again, that could have been imbalanced. I'm not certain. Overall, I like the idea of this super powerful legendary giving you super powerful artifacts, but the artifacts just feel too expensive. Next, here's one that I really like. Brann Bronzebeard. 3 mana for a 2/4. Another legendary. Your battle cries trigger twice. It's like the Baron Rivendare of battle cries. I like this one a lot. I personally think I'm going to be using him in certain decks, just because he's nice and cheap. I like cheap legendaries. And I guess this is something that you can actually make use of from the early game. Imagine Abusive Sergeant. You can have 4 attack from your 1 mana Abusive Sergeant on any minion. We've been told that the battle cries will always trigger twice on the same target if there's a target selected. But if it's something like Novice Engineer or whatever, you get to draw 2 cards. There are so many possibilities for this, and I think it's pretty cool. Okay, I think that this is actually one of the legendaries that we will see played quite a bit. There are many different ways of using this and actually having it be effective. So he's one of my favorites in the set. I really like him. Brann Bronzebeard. Next up, Elise Starseeker. Speaking of favorites, another one of my favorites. But, man, this card. Oh. 4 mana for a 3/5. Battlecry, shuffle the map to the golden monkey into your deck. So, this old legendary here, I like her a lot. It's a very fun legendary. I'm not certain it's super strong. I think this will actually see some play. People just throw it into their decks because why the hell not? Because it could make for super exciting, interesting, fun games. What the map to the golden monkey is it's a map that once you draw it, you play it. I can't remember what it costs, but you play it. And then it shuffles the golden monkey into your deck, which is a 4 mana 6/6, and its battle cry, I think that's correct. Its battle cry is turn your entire deck and entire hand into legendaries. Just like that. Everything that's left. So if you have 5 cards in your hand when you play the golden monkey, then they all turn into legendaries, random legendaries. They could be the big ones, the small ones, whatever. All of them are actually pretty good. I mean, all the legendaries in the game can find use somewhere, and everything left in your deck also gets turned into legendaries. So when this comes into play, It's going to be a massive swing if you can still just survive. But you got to find the map to the golden monkey, then you got to find the golden monkey, then you got to play it. So it's like a 3-step thing. You play her, you play the map, you play the golden monkey. So it's very difficult to actually pull off, but when you do, man, that will be very difficult to beat. I love the idea of it. Maybe it'll work in like mill type decks, right? Because you're going to be going through your deck pretty quickly anyway. I don't know. I mean, I just imagine mixing this with some rogue stuff, like Beneath the Grounds and stuff like that, and then maybe using something like Brann Bronzebeard to trigger Cold Light Oracle Battlecries twice, so you draw 4 cards at a time. Just imagine that. Imagine how quickly you'd go through your... Oh my god. Think about this for a second. So, not only Elise Starseeker, but Brann Bronzebeard. Say you play Cold Light Oracle. Okay, after you've got the Golden Monkey stuff shuffled in there, but Cold Light Oracle, then that will draw with Brann Bronzebeard out. That'll draw 4 cards, then you Shadow Step it, play it again, another 4 cards. That's 8 cards already. Just, ugh. No ways. You will mill someone so quickly. Anyway, next card. Another legendary. This is Rio Jackson. 6 mana for a 4/6. If your deck contains no more than 1 of any card, fully heal your hero. That's okay. I think that this is whatever is left in your deck. So if there's only 1 of each card left in your deck, then you fully heal your hero. So if you have like, say 2 of one specific card in your deck and you had already drawn 1 of those, then this will still trigger, it'll still work. It doesn't take your deck as a whole, just takes what's left in it. I like it a lot. I think that this could definitely find play in like slower control type decks. I don't see why a control warrior or something like that wouldn't play this. Maybe, well, maybe not a freeze mage. Freeze mage actually needs duplicates of cards, but stuff like that. Control warrior probably could use this. I don't see why control warrior would need duplicates of anything. There are so many singles that could work in a control warrior. I like him. I like Rio Jackson. He's pretty okay. Not amazing. I mean, I much prefer something like Brann Bronzebeard, but healing your hero up to full is it's not bad. Not bad at all. Next up, the final neutral and final legendary, Sir Finley Murgleton. This is a 1-mana legendary. The first 1-mana legendary. He's also a Murloc. It's 1 mana for a 1/3. Battlecry, discover a new basic hero power. That's pretty damn cool, right? Now, this cannot give you your own hero power back. So, when you play this guy on turn 1, he's a 1/3, and it will allow you to immediately pick any hero power from any of the other classes. So you could get the daggers from the rogue, the fire blast from the mage, life tap from warlock. I like this idea a whole lot. I think that it's probably most useful for shamans because they don't really like their hero power to begin with. But it's nice. I like it a lot. I guess in some cases it's a bit of a nerf to the Murloc Knight as well, but only in some cases. Not so bad. Okay, it's much worse getting the Murloc Tiny Fin than this guy. I like the idea of this card. I think it's really cool, and cheap legendaries always fun. But that's it for the neutrals. We're going to move on to the class cards now, starting with Druid. First up, Jungle Moonkin. 4 mana for a 4/4. Rare card. Both players have spell damage +2. This is also a beast, and he looks very happy to be casting spells. This is okay. I think this is okay, because as Druid, do you really care if your opponent has spell damage? I don't know. I mean, I personally wouldn't use this, but maybe there's a certain type of deck that could benefit from it. The fact that it's a beast helps. But I guess if you're playing a beast Druid deck, then you don't really want spell power. Like you're going for a more tempo game with less spells, more minion. I don't know. But it's not terrible. Okay, let's just say that. Next up, speaking of not terrible, this is probably one of the better cards in the entirety of the set. 3 mana for a 3/2. This is the Mounted Raptor. Now, what this is basically the little brother of the Piloted Shredder. So 3 mana for a 3/2. That's the same stat distribution as Piloted Shredder. That's 4 mana for a 4/3. the Death Rattle is summon a random 1-cost minion. It's pretty good, right? I mean, 1-cost minion could give you Sir Finley Murgleton. Could give you a Flame Imp. A Void Walker. A lot of others. A Zombie Chow, that's pretty good, right? Imagine this on turn 3 into a Pilot Shredder on turn 4. That's strong. I think Druids needed a really strong 3-drop. Sure, they had the Flame Bird and Flame Cat, which is 2/5/5/2. That's okay and all, but this is much better. This is also a beast. And the artwork is cool, and I just like this card. I like this card a lot. And it'll always be interesting to see who was mounting this Raptor. Which 1-drop pops out of there. Very good card, I like it. Next, the Raven Idol. This is the final Druid card. 1 mana, choose 1. Discover a minion or discover a spell. I like this a whole lot because, firstly, it could potentially give birth to like a whole new archetype of Druid using cheaper spells and stuff like that. Maybe the return of the Auctioneer is imminent or something. Basically, it gives you so much flexibility. Because you play this on turn 1, you get to decide, okay, so now in my hand I've got a bunch of spells, I need a minion. So you pick minion, then you get a choice between 3 minions. Any minions in the game. Any neutrals and any Druid minions. Same goes for spells. Any Druid spells, you could pick up Force of Nature or Savage Roar. Swipe, whatever, you know, lots of spells. I love the idea of this. I like how cheap it is. I think it's cool. I'd play this. I would play it. Moving on. Hunter cards. A new secret. Dot Trap. When an opposing hero power is used, deal 5 damage to a random enemy. It's obviously 2 mana, like all the other traps. It's okay. I guess you don't really want to randomly deal 5 damage as a hunter. You want that 5 damage to go to face. That would be great. But I like the fact that it's just another thing that your opponent needs to think about. Right? Because in many cases, when you play a secret, when you play something, they don't know what it is. They kind of default to using the hero ability because it's the safest thing to do maybe. And then, bam, it does 5 damage to something. 5 damage on turn 2, that's pretty significant. So I guess that's okay. But I don't know why. I don't know where this would fit in. Okay, so it doesn't work in a face deck unless you're just really lucky. I mean, unless there's nothing on the board or it goes face. That would be good. 2 mana for 5 damage is pretty damn good. But in many cases, you'd rather use one of the others, I guess. Next, another hunter card, Desert Camel. 3 mana for a 2/4. This is a beast, common, Battlecry. Put a 1-cost minion from each deck into the battlefield. I think it's okay. 3 mana for a 2/4 is not bad. It's decent. I mean, we just saw 3 mana for a 3/2 on the Raptor, so this is 1 extra stat point. And the Battlecry, I think when you're playing a couple of 1-cost minions yourself, it's decent if you know that the value of your 1-costs is high, because a lot of decks don't even play 1-cost minions. You know, they go from 2 and up. So this could actually see play and it could actually be decent. You know, just because the chances are slim that your opponent would actually have something good to pull out. And I suppose in most cases this Camel would deal with whatever it pulls out. Guess you don't want to play this against a Warlock. That's pretty much it. But it's okay. I like it. I like it. Next, another card I like. Explorer's Hat. 2 mana for a spell, Hunter. It's a rare. Give a minion +1/+1 and Death Rattle. Add an Explorer's Hat to your hand. So basically, you never lose the hat. Okay, so whenever the minion dies, this comes back to your hand. You can give another minion +1/1. I like this a lot. I think it has a place in a certain Hunter deck that doesn't really exist yet. Giving 1/1 to a minion and then knowing that you'll get this back at a certain point is pretty damn cool. And if you think about it, it does synergize pretty nicely with the Jinny we saw before, because then it'll go on whatever you cast it on plus the Jinny and maybe some other minions out there. I like the idea of it. And it's 2 mana, so if you're not playing super aggressive, you could squeeze this in instead of your hero power at certain points. But I guess 1/1 for 2 mana is not too strong. I don't know. Like, it's difficult to use in current Hunter decks, but maybe in a new tempo-based Hunter Beast deck this would work nicely. I would like to see this work, because I like the card. Next, Mage. Animated Armor. This is a rare. 4 mana for a 4/4. Your hero can only take 1 damage at a time. Pretty cool artwork as well. I think it's okay. I mean, your hero can only take 1 damage at a time. This will only work if people are going straight for face and ignoring your animated armor. Why would they do that? Maybe it's good against, like, crazy combo decks, but then, like, they could just kill this first and then do their crazy combo. Could delay them for a single turn. Overall, I don't think it's a great card at all. It's not that good, but it's an interesting idea. I like that Blizzard are putting more unique stuff like this in the game. Next. Ethereal Conjurer. 5 mana for a 6/3. Battlecry, discover a spell. It's okay. 5 mana is a bit steep. 6/3 sucks in terms of stats, because that'll just die to anything out there. But discovering a spell from the mage pool is good, because there are mostly just good mage cards. Sure, you could get something like 3 cheap ones, so your discovery could be full of 3 super cheap cards. Remember, discover is always a choice between 3, so it could be something like Mirror Image, Arcane Missiles, and Frostbolt. In which case, you know, maybe Frostbolt's okay, I guess, but 5 mana for a 6/3, that doesn't really make up for it. On the flip side, you could potentially get a Flame Strike or something like that, and that would be really good, you know? So it's not terrible. I think this is pretty okay, but it's not going to see that much play. Here's something that's much better. Forgotten Torch. 3 mana, deal 3 damage, shuffle a Roaring Torch into your deck that deals 6 damage. I like that. I actually like it a lot. If I'm not mistaken, the Roaring Torch is also 3 mana. So basically, you play this 3 mana for 3 damage. Sort of like Bash that warriors have, but it doesn't give you the armor. It's a little bit more expensive than a Frostbolt. But you do have that Roaring Torch in your deck that instead deals 6 damage for 3, which is a better version of Fireball. I think that the tit for tat there, the give and take there, you're paying a little bit extra for the first one, but getting the next one cheaper, and getting that extra card in your deck, I think that makes it worth it. I think this will be pretty good in Freeze Mage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be pretty great if you keep it in your hand, you reduce its cost with Thaurissan, you play it, then it's like a Frostbolt. That doesn't freeze, but still very good. I like Forgotten Torch. I think it's really good, and I will definitely use it. Now Paladin cards, this is disappointing to me. Anything can happen. Okay, so I love the name. I love the idea that they went with here. Okay, anything can happen. You know, it's from the Lego movie, right? And 10 mana, summon 7 Murlocs that died this game. I think that's terrible. I think that you don't want to summon any Murlocs that died this game. Sure, you could potentially, if you had already played Old Murkai and a bunch of other Murlocs, you could potentially just one-shot your opponent. Right, you do this, you play Anything Can Happen, it summons 7, one of them being Old Murkai, and he can just attack immediately and do a lot of damage. Cool, but otherwise it's not that great, and sitting with a 10 mana card in your hand is just not good. I think if this was 8 mana it would be viable, but for 10 mana... And Murloc decks are always pretty gimmicky anyway, but hey, there you go. I don't like it, I don't think it's good at all, but it's a cool idea. Here is the Keeper of Uldaman. This is a common, 4 mana for a 3/4, Battlecry, set a minion's attack and health to 3. That's an interesting idea, because this is like a type of equality. So you can set a minion of your own, say for instance you play a Argent Squire, 1/1 with Divine Shield. You could play that, then you could cast the Keeper of Uldaman on it, and it would set it to 3/3. It'll still have its Divine Shield. That's pretty okay, right? I like that you can use it on your opponent's minion to make that weaker, or potentially on your own to heal it up or make it stronger. I like the versatility, but 4 mana in Paladin is so difficult already with all the good 4 mana stuff. Just off the top of my head, Consecrate, Blessing of Kings, True Silver Champion, Murloc Knight, like the list just goes on. You could even throw Pilot Shredder in there. It's just, there's so much good stuff on 4 that I don't know where you'd fit this in. Like, I don't know what you'd cut to put this in. But I like the card a lot. Next, Priest. Entomb. 6 mana. Choose an enemy minion and shuffle it into your deck. I love this card. One of the better cards in the set, in my honest opinion. This is the hardest of removal, plus it gives you card advantage in the form of extra cards in your deck. And if you use it on something good, you get that something good. You get to play it in future turns. I love this card. I think it's great. I think it's really, really good. I mean, sure, it's 6 mana, it'll only be really viable later in the game, but later in the game you want to remove big stuff. It's great. You know, you get to also avoid the Death Rattle, like, completely. You shuffle Tyrion Fordring into your deck, and he doesn't get his Ashbringer. You know, the opposing player doesn't get the Ashbringer. It's good. Now, because there's such a good Priest card, there's obviously also a really bad one. Here's Excavated Evil, 5 mana, deal 3 damage to all minions. Shuffle this card into your opponent's deck. I don't know why you'd play this. I do not know. Costs the same as Holy Nova, doesn't heal you, does 1 more damage maybe, but you also give this to your opponent. Maybe, just maybe, there's some type of deck that I can't think of right now that could use this, but I can't think of it right now. I can't think of any use for it. This rare card is pretty bad. Next. Museum Curator. This is a minion, 2 mana for a 1/2. Battlecry, discover a Death Rattle card. So, Death Rattle cards are generally really good. I mean, I think pretty much all of them are really good. And if you get a choice of 3, you will get something really good from that. But 2 mana for a 1/2 is a little weak. I guess this would work in a control deck where you can control the board going forward. I mean, think about playing this on turn 2, then on turn 3 putting a Villain's Chosen on it. That would be good, I suppose. But then again, a Villain's Chosen on something like a Wormrest Agent would be much better. You know what I'm saying? So, stats-wise, not too strong, but the effect is really good. Choice between 3 Death Rattle cards from the game, that's nice. Real nice. Next up, Rogue. Pit Snake. 1 mana for a 2/1, destroy any minion damaged by this minion. This is a common. It is pretty much a Patient Assassin, but it's 1 cheaper. It's got 1 more attack. I don't know if this is good or not. Like, I don't see where this would fit in. Sure, in a super aggressive deck it's kind of cool, but 1 health can be removed by literally anything. So, it's not too strong. It is a beast, however. Doesn't do much for Rogue in that case, but hey, you could summon this with a Ram Wrangler. You could discover it when you're discovering a beast. I don't know. Next card is the Tomb Pillager. 4 mana for a 5/4 common card. Death Rattle, add a coin to your hand. I suppose it's okay. 4 mana for a 5/4 is not amazing. I mean, the 4 health, it would be better if it was 4 mana for a 4/5. That would be great. Then I think I would see a lot of play. But this, as it stands, again, the 4 mana slot's pretty competitive. Don't know where this would see play. But I do like the idea of it. I mean, it's cool that you can get a coin from it. The coin is always useful. It's like a mini innovate. The turn after this dies. It's kind of cool, right? But not amazing. Speaking of amazing, though, the Unearthed Raptor is pretty amazing. 3 mana for a 3/4. I like those stats a lot. Battlecry, choose a friendly minion, gain a copy of its Death Rattle effect. How cool is that? You could play this and maybe copy like a Piloted Shredder's Death Rattle. You could copy, I don't know, what else could you put in your deck? Okay, let's just think. Harvest Golem, you could copy the Tomb Pillager's Death Rattle that we just saw. I don't know, there are lots of different effects that you could get. Maybe the more expensive cards, like some of the legendaries and stuff. I like the idea of this card a whole lot, especially because the stats are nice. 3/4 is good. It's on turn 3, so if you put that on turn 3, you copy a Death Rattle effect, it can on turn 4 kill your opponent's Piloted Shredder. It can kill all the 2-drops. You know, it's a strong card. A really strong card. Also one of my favorites in the entire set. I think it's really good. Next, a Paladin secret that was meant to be with the other Paladin cards. I don't know why this wasn't there. Sacred Trial. I also don't know why they added another secret. I think they might have designed this and added it to their adventure before the rise of Secret Paladin. And this is actually a pretty good secret. When your opponent has at least 3 minions and plays another, destroy it. That's so strong, right? I mean, if your opponent just musters plus plays a shielded minibot, that shielded minibot is toast. In this day and age, in, say for instance, the current meta, it's quite often that any player at a given time has more than 3 minions. And it's just another secret for the Mysterious Challenger to pull out. So, I'm not certain why they put this in here. I don't know why I also missed it and did put it with the other Paladin cards, but here it is now, Sacred Trial. It's quite good, I think, and it's just going to make Secret Paladin even stronger. It's another secret. Next. Everything is awesome. This is a Shaman card. 7 mana. Give all your minions +2/+2. All your minions, not just Murlocs. As you can see, this is a Murloc-themed card. Costs 1 less for each Murloc you control. So if you have 5 Murlocs, this will only cost 2. My god. 2 mana to give all your minions 2/2. I think it's pretty damn good. It's like a Bloodlust for Murloc decks that can be run along with Bloodlust. I think it's amazing. I think it's really good for Murloc decks, but again, Murloc decks are as it stands, pretty gimmicky and stuff. You know, they are not always really viable, but maybe with all the new Murloc stuff that they add in, and Sir Finley Murgleton and everything else, maybe, just maybe, they'll actually be competitive going forward, and then this will be very useful for Shamans. Rumbling Elemental, 4 mana for a 2/6. After you play a Battlecry minion, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. This is very good. I think this is incredibly good, actually. If you just get a couple of Battlecry minions in your deck, then that 2 damage to a random enemy could stack up nicely, and 2 damage is enough to kill a whole lot of stuff that was played before turn 4. There are 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost, and 4 cost cards that could be killed by this, and it's a 2/6, so it will survive. I think it's good. Real good. Next, Tunnel Trog. 1 mana for a 1/3. Whenever you overload, gain +1 attack per locked mana crystal. That's okay. I suppose this is pushing the idea of an overload-based deck, and I think it could work. I really think it could do some damage, but you know, you'd have to get pretty lucky, and later game obviously it's slightly less viable, but still, it's a nice 1 mana minion that could potentially, in many Shaman decks, actually see some use. It could be okay, you know? A lot of Shaman cards that are played nowadays can be played between turn 1 and 4 and actually help this dude out. Give him some extra attack per locked mana crystal. So I think it's okay. Not amazingly good, but I think it should see some play, right? Next is Warlock. Curse of Rafam. Give your opponent a cursed card. While they hold it, they take 2 damage on their turn. This is the same as the adventure card we saw from... Was it Blackrock Mountain? I think so. One of the dragons kept giving you these cards that you needed to play. I don't think it's amazingly good. 2 mana, and I think the cursed card that they get is also 2 mana. So they need to play the cursed card before the end of their turn, else they take 2 damage. I don't think 2 damage is very significant. I don't know where this would work. Okay, I don't know if this is affected by spell power either. I mean, imagine you play this with Malagos or something, that would be great. But, as it stands, I think it's like a filler card that probably won't find its way into any decks. Next is the Dockpeddler. 2 mana for a 2/2. Battlecry, discover a 1-cost card. That's a 1-cost card that could be a spell or a minion. Pretty okay, I guess. 2 mana for a 2/2 is not super strong, but the 1-cost card could be okay. I mean, again, you got Flame Imps, Voidwalkers, Sir Finley Murgleton, a bunch of stuff in there. You put that in your hand, you can play it as well. It's okay. Maybe this will find a spot in Zoolox because it gives you an extra card, but then again, you could just life tap and pick up a card anyway. I suppose you could see it as life tapping and thinking of picking up like a cheap card, and then you still get a 2/2 minion, right? So it's okay. This could actually see some play, I guess. Reliquary Seeker. This, on the other hand, probably not. 1 mana for a 1/1. This is a rare. Battlecry, if you have 6 other minions, gain +4/+4. So it's a 5/5 for 1 mana if you have a full board. I don't think it's very good. Having a full board is near impossible in most cases. Maybe with a really good implosion it would work, but I don't know. In most cases it just won't be 5/5. It'll just be a 1/1. But again, it's a 1/1 for 1, so I guess it's not so bad. Next is Warrior. Here's the Cursed Blade. This is probably the worst card in the entire set. 1 mana. They have something against making good weapons, as far as I can tell. 1 mana for a 2/3 weapon. Double all damage dealt to your hero. Imagine playing this against a Face Hunter. That would be the dream for the Face Hunter. They can just use their hero ability and deal 4 damage to you. No thanks. No thank you. And it's a rare. Here's a good card, though. Fierce Monkey. 3 mana for a 3/4 with Taunt. And it's a beast. That's pretty okay, right? That's, I would say, definitely usable. I mean, the 3 mana slot for Warrior is not crazy full of lots of stuff, but, I mean, a 3 mana 3/4, that could push a couple of other cards out of it, because in certain cases, maybe with Control Warrior or something, you want to be a little bit more defensive. You want to survive for a couple of turns, and, well, you at least want something out there in the early game to keep you alive until the later turns, and this is a good tool to do that. I don't know if it being a beast helps you out very much. In most cases, that probably won't, but it is a 3 mana 3/4 with Taunt. So it's pretty good. Again, it's like the same amount of stats as something like a Piloted Shredder, but you can play it on turn 3. So I like it. Next and final card, the Obsidian Destroyer. This is a 7 mana 7/7. At the end of your turn, summon a 1/1 Scarab with Taunt. It's okay. I mean, I guess you'd rather just play Dr. Boom instead of this, but I don't know. I think this is good in Arena. I don't think it'll see much play in other warrior decks. I guess it's quite good if you get like a Varian Runoff and it draws into this and puts it straight into the battlefield. That's nice. 1/1 Scarab with Taunt. I don't know. It's a stronger version of Hogger, but Hogger makes a 2/2 with Taunt. It's okay, but not great. I prefer the Fierce Monkey, that's for sure. But that's it. That's all the cards. I'd love to hear from you guys what you think about all of them. I told you what some of my highlights were. I mean, I like the Mounted Raptor. I like some of the cheaper spells here. Big fan of the... what is it called? Unearthed Director. So both the Raptors are really nice. The legendaries like Brann Bronzebeard, really cool. I love Elise Starseeker. The idea of that's really nice. Finley Milgleton's really cool. A lot of fun looking cards. And I think, for the most part, this is going to be very healthy for Hearthstone. It's going to make things a lot more fun when you actually play. I'm just hoping a lot of these actually make their way into ranked play and into the competitive scene. And I hope they mix things up a little bit. You know, I hope they turn the meta on its head. And I hope people come up with some super interesting ideas to use these cards, because that always makes everything much more fun. So again, let me know what you think about these cards. Which is your favorite? You could give me like your top 3 or something like that. I haven't really thought about what my top 3 would be, but hey, I like all the cards a lot. I like the idea that they're going with Discover, and I think it could be a fun mechanic going forward. So there you go. Check back here soon for videos of the actual adventure itself. We're going to make our way through there. Probably enjoy it a lot. And that's it. Again, give this one a like, share it, and do all that good stuff. Most importantly though, happy reviewing all the cards of the League of Explorers. Happy that.